Welcome to you all at home or at the office, and welcome to Mark May here at our studio. I hope you are all comfortable where you are and have your morning coffee ready for the next 30 minutes. My name is Rainer Peer. I am CEO of the German-Danish Chamber of Commerce. We're going to talk for 30 minutes, and you can ask questions along the way using the chat function of Zoom. I'm going to have your questions posted to my iPad here. In order to briefly introduce our guest and the company he represents, it is BASF, Badische Anilin- und Sodafabrik, founded in 1865 in Mannheim, and has been present on the Danish market since the 19th century. An agency was set up in Denmark in 1898. BASF is the leading and largest chemical producer with 110,000 employees worldwide and a turnover of around 60 billion euros. And I am joined by Mark Meyer, who is in charge of BASF's business in the Nordic and Baltic countries. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Good morning, everybody.
We have agreed to touch on 3 subjects today. Number 1 is the business environment, and here Mark and BASF is ideally suited because you're a supplier to many industrial sectors. The second issue is sustainability, and the big question here, what is the chemical industry's contribution to sustainability? And number 3, if we have the time, remote management. Here again, Mark is well suited because he manages 6 countries.
Correct.
In the Nordics and Baltics, and has at least a year of experience within remote management.
Indeed.
But Mark, let's start with the business environment. And the question is, how is the recovery, the pandemic recovery coming along now as the world is in the second lockdown and growth rates vary across the world?
Maybe before I go to where we are at the moment, I think again you alluded to the industries that we're catering for, and given our portfolio, we're really there are hardly any industry that we're not touching. It's of course the chemical sector, resources, energy, automotive, very important. A lot of consumer good segments that we're dealing with, electronics. So I think we have a very, very, as you said, a very, very broad portfolio, even down to agriculture and agricultural solutions. And we've already seen at the back end of 2020, the fourth quarter, as with many of our competitors in the industry, that we've seen a significant uptick in volume developments, industrial activities, and customers were really starting to source material again. And of course, around Christmas, we were all like, yay, that was great. But everybody already thought, okay, how much of that momentum are we going to carry over into 2021? Or was this just replenishment of supply chain? A lot of questions around that. And now, in March, with the quarter, the first quarter very much in roll, I think we can say that the momentum has carried over into 2021. So I think particularly the months of January and February, they've been quite strong for us, continue to be strong on that same sort of momentum as we've seen it in quarter 4. And this is, I would say it's quite broad-based across all industries. It, of course, regionally, when you look globally, regionally, it is around China. It is around the Asian markets that are really pulling ahead and steaming ahead with growth rates. Even in 2020, we've seen double-digit growth rates in China in our business. Mm-hmm. Even though they've had this significant dip in first quarter, they've really rebounded. But also Europe, we must say, Europe is contributing well, and Europe still contributes, not quite, but almost half of our global business still is in Europe. So Europe is also contributing to this, and we see quite, particularly in automotive, everything that has to do with consumer products, just make an example, we can't produce enough materials and raw materials for decorative paintings, internal wall paintings. People, because they're home, that's what they do, and we're enjoying a lot of business of that, even to a level where we can't satisfy all the demand.
You're probably profiting from that dichotomy in the business. Really, people have pent up money and they want to spend it, and if they can't spend it on holidays, they spend it on decoration.
Yes, we see this also. I mean, last year clearly everything around care products went very well. Personal care, that would include everything around disinfectants and cleaning agents. That basically went through the roof, and that has still has remained at that level. But as I said, we're also a key supplier to soft cushioning furniture producers. Again, I mean, the order books are full. And automotive, we have to say, also automotive is very strongly rebounding compared to 19 and 20.
You mentioned the word value chain. That was a much used word in Germany, in German industry.
Yes.
In 2020, the disruption of value chains during the first pandemic period, first lockdown. Is there a difference between the second and the first lockdown in terms of value chain disruption?
I'd say yes, because in the first lockdown, in particular in April, our customer industries ceased production. So we lost order books overnight. That was only precedented with the events in 2008, 2009, when I remember that being responsible for one business where one overnight, literally, order books just dropped. They just vanished overnight. And that was the same in April. Because we know a lot of the automotive assembly plants and production plants simply stopped. They stopped their bans, and demand really was stopped for a good part. At the moment, we're seeing the other, the manufacturing sites and operations remain open, and as if nothing has happened almost. And there is certainly a degree of catch-up effect in the supply chain. And at the moment, what we're seeing, again, with regards to value chain, is that the demand is overshooting the ambitions or the planning horizon that we've had in the supply chain. So now we've heard around the semiconductor shortage in the automotive industry. That's just a very prominent one, but there are lots more where certain specific materials are just simply not available. I've been with the company for quite some time, and we have problems sourcing steel drums. That's a fundamental. I mean, it's a fundamental good. You would think it's a commodity. It's something that you could readily buy everywhere. We've heard around the steel shortages in Europe, also for the car manufacturers, but also we have basically doubled lead times to get drums. If we don't have drums for certain products, we can't deliver. It's just that simple. And we see more and more of those examples everywhere, meaning the supply chain is really, and the whole value chain is really, basically overburdened with the, additional demand that is now coming from. It's great to have it, but we also need to satisfy it. That's a big challenge at the moment.
Another small world that you mentioned was China.
Yes.
China being the only major economy that actually grew in 2020, while big European economies like France, Italy, the UK shrank by around 10%. Also, US shrank by a couple of percentage points. What does that mean for a global company like BASF in terms of future investment plans?
Yeah, it even is, even specifically when looking at the global chemicals market, it becomes even more obvious. Europe and the US, or the other way around, China's chemical market is larger than the European and the North American market combined. So if basically already today, China globally in our relevant market represents almost 40% of the global market, only that one country. And then, of course, if you then think of the growth momentum that we have in China, it leaves for a company like ourselves, it leaves no other option than to be strongly represented in China to participate from that growth. That growth until 2030, the Chinese market will grow to more than 50% of the global market. So for us, even you described the impact from the pandemic on sort of mature economies in Western Europe, but also in the US, in the Americas. Even in chemicals, I think China is even more relevant for us to play a decisive part. We've already been very well established, so we already have a lot of local productions. We're the largest Western chemical producer in China with several large production sites and also Verbund sites, meaning integrated chemical complexes. And 2 years ago, we've made a commitment and an announcement to build yet another large Verbund site, which will entail an investment into roughly 10 billion euros until 2030. And we're basically preparing ground. All the civil work is being done in the south of China in order then to have an additional footprint in China to participate from this market development that we anticipate and that will very likely come. And we see this at the moment. The strategy actually throughout the pandemic has been proven even more relevant as it was maybe 2 years ago.
Seems like China is playing a major role in stabilizing actually the German economy. I read yesterday in the Handelsblatt that Volkswagen's turnover is 41% in China. And the same obviously goes for many other companies in Germany. Mark, thank you for giving us that insight into how BASF is working and doing and the business environment. Let's go over to our second subject, sustainability. The chemical industry obviously is not the first industry you're thinking of when you say sustainability. But also you have your plans for CO2 neutrality and your plans for contributing towards CO2 neutrality. Can you tell us about where the biggest levers are for the chemical industry and what your plans are and what you're doing in terms of sustainability?
Provocatively, I would say, why is it not that the chemical industry was be seen as a contributor to sustainability? Clearly, we are energy intensive, right? So this is, I think, the overriding topic that we have. We've also committed to non-financial targets with a clear target for the years to come to decouple our economic growth from additional CO2 reductions. Maybe a recap where we come from in BASF, based on a baseline compared to baseline 1990, we have already reduced the specific CO2 out emission per ton of products sold by 70%. So we've already gone a long way in order to take out CO2 emissions through process optimization, through investments. But of course, it's fair to say that from now on we need to do more. You can also review this on our website. We emit roughly 21 million tons of CO2 per year across our operations, and the vast majority of this is actually, and this is a network of almost 250 production sites globally. But actually, the vast majority is attributed to a few big production sites at the very beginning of our production process. And what we aim to do here is in fact is twofold. So one is clearly that we need to work on our processes, on how can we in fact take out in essence fossil fuels as a starting material for running our production assets. This is largely around electrification. This is the big topic, obviously everywhere. So this is around basically swapping big upstream, what we call upstream, big production assets from natural gas fired into electrified fired plants. For this, the topic is around hydrogen, as it is out there. Also, for example, with the steel industry, we are investing into what we call a carbon management approach, whereby we are looking into proprietary technology to generate hydrogen for our big production sites, in order to use that then as a primary source of energy. Clearly, renewable electricity will play a key role. So externally sourced renewable energy will play a key role. And then we've also announced very recently, a few weeks ago, that we globally will partner with Siemens Energy to also look at really all of our processes. We have a lot of pumps, a lot of sites and production processes. And for that, we want to really work with an engineering company in order to source really the optimal, in order to reduce our carbon consumption and emission in our operations. The other bit is, of course, and that's probably more, that's very in the public mind, is of course circularity, contributing to circular economy. And this is where we have made also far-reaching pledges in order to complement our feedstock. So the materials that we use to produce our final solutions, roughly 45,000 products we have worldwide, to produce these, for example, with more bio-based feedstocks. We've also made quite a lot of advancement, actually, particularly here in Denmark, with investing into technology to recycle and what we call ChemCycle household plastic waste and other end-of-life plastic materials or rubber materials in order to recuperate these materials and to basically feed them back as complementary feedstocks into our production Verbund, which then really allows to convert, in essence, household plastic waste into virgin materials again of all sorts. So I think we're doing a lot there, which is and here actually Denmark plays particularly in the chem cycling arena, plays a very important role for us at the moment.
Because there is an investment that you made in Denmark,
we did.
See, so 20 million.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we invested into actually what is a Norwegian company called Quantafuel roughly a year and a half ago, and we've supported them in finalizing their investment, their initial investment into the first commercial plant of plastic pyrolysis recycling. But they have a very unique technology with this production, or first of its kind, that they're putting up, and it's commissioned now in Skive in Nordjylland. We've supported them. We are partnering with them. We really believe in this technology. We're sort of, we've invested into them, but we're also partnering because we have basically we have an off-take contract with them for anything coming out of the production plant in order to feed this into our for production Verbund in the south of Germany.
Great. I can actually see that there are no questions in the chat. I encourage you all to ask questions because we've got another 12 minutes left here. Oh, there is a question. You mentioned Siemens Energy, and there is, I think it's Peter Weiner Jensen is Siemens Energy's CEO here in Denmark. BASF and Siemens Energy signed an MOU for working on making the production more sustainable with green hydrogen and large electrical heat pumps. Do you know if there are any similar plans in your region?
Yeah, I do know, and they're not. What we have, like I said, we have a few really large production facilities. One of which, being in Europe, is clearly Ludwigshafen. The second one is Antwerp, and then we have another larger production asset in Tarragona in Catalonia, and certainly Ludwigshafen and Antwerp are of such magnitude also as part of the overall CO2 balance of BASF Group that these are the areas where we concentrate our efforts on. And the scale of the investment and the project, as as it's been alluded here, basically electrical heat pumps and converting our processes in the right possible way is enormous. It will take us many, many years. It will take us probably a decade in order to really advance on this. And the idea here is really to concentrate on our so-called Verbund sites, Ludwigshafen, Antwerp. There are 2 more sites in the US and 3 sites in Asia, because they really represent the vast majority of our carbon footprint, whereas actually the other almost 230 sites in the overall scheme of things for BASF at the moment really don't really play a big role when it comes to the overall balance of CO2. The impact we can generate on those sites is by far bigger. So for Nordics and Baltics, for our production site we have here, we're not pursuing any activities at the moment.
Several more questions came in. One about force majeure for a large amount of products. What is the action to solve the situation?
Yeah, this is what I alluded to. We have seen a number of force majeures actually since start of the year, but also very recently last week. We've had an outage in our production facility, in one production facility in Ludwigshafen. So it's a mix. So one is a number of force majeures were attributed to suppliers letting us down because they were not able to meet their commitments towards us, and that leaves us no other choice than to then follow suit. Clearly, last week it was a fault in our production. I have, as of today, no firm statement on when and how bad and severe the technical impediment is. I can rest assured that nobody wants force majeures, and I know that there is task force at hand in order to rectify the plant and bringing the plants back on stream. As of today, I don't know where we are with this process.
Hannes Reuter has a question. Thermal energy storage, topic for BASF within its decarbonization path?
I have to admit, on that specific question, I'm not 100% sure whether that is part of the initiative that we within part of our carbon management program. So I would need to follow that one up.
Per Andersen, how are you working with reuse of chemicals such as plastics raw materials?
Yeah, this is exactly what I meant. We are investing heavily into chem cycling as one alternative. We have as part of our operation and production of plastic grades, in essence. Of course, we minimize any waste that we may have in our process. So it's the question of industrial waste is probably more a question for our customers and our converters. And here again, it's our attempt to build a supply chain or closing the loop together with partners like Quantafuel in the area of chem cycling. This is exactly what we're working on, trying to close this loop at the end, trying to come up with an alternative to those plastic fractions, end-of-life plastic fractions that cannot be meaningfully mechanically recycled, which is in certain parts still mechanical recycling is a preferable avenue to take. But this is exactly where we're trying to build an additional complementing part, in fact, to incineration and waste to heat or waste to energy, in order to really upcycle the material again. So that's the key bit. It takes quite some stamina because there is a lot of plastic waste on the one hand, but there's also a lot of demand for these products at the moment, and the technologies and the scale of the value chains and assets that takes time.
with 5 minutes left, there are now many questions coming in, and we're going to skip this remote management part.
I think so.
In favor of talking about the sector, actually. Marcus Haas has a question. Coming back to the recovery after the lockdowns, do you see all sectors of industry recovering equally?
There are no. The answer is no. We have clearly some that are steaming ahead. As I mentioned, anything that is to do with actually directly DIY or consumer demand is really steaming ahead, followed by automotive, I would say. We have some areas, for example, we have a very unique business around car body repair. It's our coatings refinish business. So when you have an accident and you need to get your car fixed for that little accident, that is lagging. That is still suffering at the moment. Why? Less driving on the street. People are less mobile, and people tend not to take their car into body shops because of the contact. So we still have some businesses that are simply also impacted by the restrictions of movement and mobility. So not broad-based, but yeah.
Okay. Carsten Sko, how will you implement Quantafuel technology in your production, and what are the expectations for the outcome? That it will work.
Yes,
probably.
Exactly. It is working. We're still in scale up for the Skive plant. Quantafuel, and I don't want to speak of Quantafuel, but in their plans, they have made commitments to expand their footprint in Denmark with an additional site and asset in Esbjerg, which will immediately, by far, be bigger than the one that they are putting into Skive. And this is basically what we are supporting them with, and that we want to take further also beyond Esbjerg. So they've announced an asset of 80 to 100,000 tons of pyrolysis oil, equivalent to around 100 to 120,000 tons of household waste that they will basically then take in and recycle. So it's basically around scale up, and we will need, as BASF, we will need partners more than Quantafuel. Actually, we need more partners of this in order to satisfy the need of our customers for these feedstock materials.
There is a question by Julia Abrams, and I think it's going to be our last question because we want to keep the schedule. And maybe if that is possible, Mark, could you answer the other questions in writing?
I will try so.
Yeah. Julia Abrams, do you face supply issues also related to sick leaves in production? I don't know. It might concern COVID. I'm not quite sure, considering them force majeure.
Yeah, thankfully not. So we have not had significant impact into production due to sick leaves. And obviously also corona infections as a result. So we've had some moments actually here in our production site here in Ballerup where at 2-3 very neuralgic points, individuals in certain shifts were infected. This was back end of last year, and it only would have taken 1 or 2 more, and then we maybe would have had some impact into the production side. This was in quality control, this was in packaging, so very neuralgic points of the production plants. But so far, we have not had significant impact due to absenteeism.
Okay. That reminds me of another piece of information that I read just the other day. There is no other country where company physicians play such a role like in Germany.
Yes.
So the vaccination drive in Germany will mainly be carried out, or will be carried out also by major German companies.
Correct.
By BASF, Volkswagen, and all the other companies. When they start vaccinating their employees, we're going to pick up speed.
Yes.
In the vaccination drive. I think we have it's 9 o'clock, and we're going to keep ourselves to these 30 minutes. Thank you for participating there wherever you are. Thank you to Mark for being here.
Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for all the questions.
Interesting. and varied questions, we did not get around to this topic of remote management. I would like to point out the next coffee session that we're going to have in 2 weeks' time. There'll be a session with Siemens Healthineers that are a major player within diagnostics, and the overall topic there will be testing, corona testing, because Healthineers is a very major player in quick testing, and we're going to talk about the role of testing also with regard to reopening our economies and societies. Thank you very much for joining. Hope to see you in 2 weeks' time.